the fire moving on me. I feel the fire moving on me. It had to be Jesus down in Jerusalem. Holy Ghost and fire.
A pleasant good evening and welcome to another segment of Sisters on the Seat. We're coming to you live from the Little Jerusalem Apostolic Ministries, Delaport Point. This is our first segment for the year, so we say welcome to those of you that are viewing from media platforms. We say welcome to those in-house. Our topic for this evening is finances. New resolutions, are they livable? Are they doable? Are they realistic? So we have with us this evening as guests two veterans in the area of finances. We have Ms. Raenette Johnson, who is a veteran in the area of bank and trust. She's also a financial planner. She has certifications in anti-money laundering, and the list goes on. We have also with us Ms. Lakeisha Bastian, who's a veteran in the insurance industry, also financial planner. So we should have some good tips, insight, and really, I should have money leave over after this. So we're looking forward to them giving us what we can do to improve our finances and what is really realistic and livable. Because most persons, we set these high goals in January that we cannot maintain, and it's not really attainable. And so we need realistically to know what we can afford and what we can do to improve, especially with passive income. So ladies, we're gonna start the ball rolling. Ms. Johnson.
Thank you for having me. Oh, yes.
You can go ahead.
Thanks again for having me. I know when you start the new year, even for me, I start in December, November, thinking about the year, doing a year in review. That's the most important thing for me. Before you can plan, you have to really retract and look at your year and what happened, what didn't happen, what could have happened, what went wrong, what went well. So I think for in the new year, if you haven't done it as yet, it's January, it's not too late, sit down and take a year in review. Look at what you did financially, look at where you are financially. Let's look at big spending, small spending. Did you budget? Did you stick to your plans? Did you have big purchases? Did you have impulsive purchases? Did things go according to plan? Did you have a lot of emergencies? So those are the things that you try to map out first, I would say, before you go to your year, your current year, and the goals that you want to achieve.
Bastian.
Thanks for having me. Pretty much what Ms. Johnson would have said is most important. And I feel that in order for us to understand where you're going, you have to first look at where you would have been. Yeah. So once you set a plan, we know that a plan is not hard and fast, because there are some things that will happen that will cause you to deviate from that plan. But in essence, you really must have a plan to first set in order to achieve it.
Okay, I can agree with that. So in this planning, and I never thought about going back to review what you've done in the past year before going forward. Now that makes a lot of sense, because going back, you would see, okay, I did this, I did this, I did that. Did it work out for me? Was it feasible? And so that really makes sense. So that's a tip I can put in my hat. I also want to ask you the question, in budgeting, should you always have an emergency, like a loose set of money on the side for emergency or mishaps or unplanned things? Because some people sometimes have a very strict budget. They could barely buy a popsicle, and I know that's not realistic. So what are your thoughts on that?
I would say most definitely you have to plan for a rainy day, because anything can happen at any time. But like you spoke about strict budgets, sometimes the strict budgets are a result of the impulsive spending, or not sticking to the guidelines.
Yes.
So sometimes it comes with a lot of discipline in order for you to really plan for that rainy day. Because if you continuously shop impulsively, then you would do away with what you could have for a rainy day.
I agree with Ms. Bastian, but if you're budgeting, you should be budgeting for emergencies. So that may not be a thought to some persons, but you should have emergency spending or emergency funds set aside in your budget. And emergencies could be anything from having to buy a new tire Because we know that's a real
Yes,
emergency,
yes,
right?
yes.
Having to buy a new battery. You maybe need to buy an alternator. Your child gets sick, you have to take them to the doctor. They may need a small procedure. So it's good to set aside those funds for emergency purposes. I know some finance professionals like to say a minimum of $1,000 set aside for emergency funds, but it's best to go with your budget, right? Because $1,000 in a savings sitting aside may not be attainable for most persons in this
Yes,
economy,
yes.
right? So you would have to look at, I would say, about 10%, 20% of your income to set aside for a rainy day, meaning that you don't touch it. These are your emergency funds.
Okay, that's good advice. So, in this era that we live in, things are expensive, the cost of living is going up. What advice would you give to, say, a couple just married, about to start a family, or just started a family? What steps should they take, or what should be their first step towards getting a home, or even a car, or planning out their life? What would be their first step?
Okay, from the financial aspect, in terms of insurance, most definitely you would need life insurance in order to get to that place where you are trying to secure a home. But finances is a conversation that most people tend to run away from. We have to have a frank conversation about finances because I could be working towards one thing and you're working towards something else. So a conversation is most important, and then you have set realistic goals as to how we're going to achieve this goal because you don't want to have so much burden on a relationship whereby you're living so rigid and things are so tight that it becomes a problem for the relationship. So I think a conversation and taking it step by step until you could get to where you want to go.
I agree. I agree with I agree with Miss Bastian. I think personally, from working in the bank, you would believe that working in the bank, you know every sector or every area of the bank, and that's not true. I think most Bahamians are unaware of finances, financial planning, their own pockets, what's in their own pockets. So my suggestion would be to be aware. Most persons don't know the costs that it entails or the down payment to buy a house. So first, have to be aware. You have to be aware of what your goals are and how to get towards them. So in addition to the conversation, I would implore most persons to shop around. Like you see a house, the house is nice, but then you find out that the house is $500,000, right? And the average cost to build a house, a minimal small home, maybe $300,000. So at the level that you are, that may be unattainable right now, right? But if you are aware now that guess what, I have to work towards 300,000, you may need to get a better job. You may need to save more. You may need to cut back on some expenses. So I think the first thing is to be aware of the cost of living. We aren't. We live day to day, but we're not really aware of the cost of living and the sacrifices that we may need to make to get there. So that's one. In addition to having a conversation, I think saving is the most important tool that you could use, and saving together. Saving together helps because it builds trust, right? Because we both know that we have to save this money, we have to achieve this goal together. So it also strengthens your relationship. It helps to prepare you for a family. You have a child, you have children, you have expenses automatically, right? Unplanned expenses. So I think that is saving is a number one tool. It helps you to utilize liquid cash. You could go to the bank, you have your savings. A down payment for a home is about $40,000 right now. Most persons can't come up with that, right? It would take you time to come up with that. Even a life insurance, most persons don't have a life insurance. I implore persons in their 20s, max it out and get a $300,000 life policy because you're going to need it to buy a home, right? That's the advice that I wasn't given when I was 21 years old. That's the advice that I'm giving to most young persons. You have a job, you could spare 150. I don't know, I don't want to quote the numbers, but when I was getting my life insurance, that was the amount that I had to pay monthly as a young person. Most young persons today spend that frivolously. That may be a weekend out party and having fun with friends, but that's an investment in your life and in your future. So those are the things I think we need to have conversations around how to prepare ourselves for the next 5, 10, 15 years to get where we want to be.
Okay, Miss Bastian.
Yes, and the insurance is very important because what we have found is most times when the bank now say that you need life insurance in order to get the mortgage, a lot of persons are just now coming running in, and Ms. Johnson made a valid point. Get that while you're young, because at that point, a lot of persons once they would get there, they're not in a position. They're not in a position to really accommodate the payment for the insurance. That's one. Or physically, they're not healthy enough to get
Yeah.
what it is that they need. So in some instances the policy is actually rated, so now you're paying way more than what you would have even budgeted for. So the best thing to do is to get that insurance while you're young, so you could secure it for when you need it.
Agreed, agreed. I did a presentation. Um, Miss Diallo was in the audience, and I told her the presentation was more geared towards how parents can prepare their kids. And I told them the first thing is let your children experience monies. That's something that we don't do, right? We grow up, we have a job, we start earning our monies, but we never had a chance to touch, feel, use, manage our monies before that. So that introduction to money earlier on helps children who will become adults to realize that, hey, this is your earning power. This will get you wherever you need to go and afford you a lot of opportunities. But if you waste it, right, while you may be able to make it back, you're going to look back and say, boy, I could have do a whole lot when I was in my 20s. So that's another advice for persons that trying to make some headway. You're never too far gone. Always some things you can do, but also definitely educating those that are younger, your children, family members, and how to make better financial decisions.
I can attest to that because my grandsons recently started working at the store as packing boys. And beforehand, when they would be so loose and careless with monies, now that they have their own monies, they have their bank account, and every day they would have wanted Wendy's and Kentucky and KFC. But now that they have their own funds, no, now I'm going to go home. There's something home to eat.
Correct,
And
correct.
one particular one, my grandson, that's one of the twins, he is so tight. He will have his twin buy the food and he try bum a little bit from him, and he have all his money stacked up in his pocket.
Oh,
So when the Christmas came, he was like, I think I want grills. I think I want a watch. And it really gave them an insight. They understand now better what the parents have to do for money
correct.
and the meaning of money. And they are now, even with the light, one is telling the other, turn that light off. Light bill is expensive. Before they didn't care about that.
Correct.
But now they know the value and the meaning of money. So
Yes.
I agree with you. And what you said about your parents not telling you, I agree with that. Because I sometimes would say, boy, if mommy had told me when I was younger, get property and do this and do that, instead of us traveling so much and buying clothes and doing all of this stuff. I mean, you did well, but you could have done better. So that's the advice I try to give to my children and even my grandchildren, follow the path, be steadfast, save your money. And it's not really not what you make, it's what you do with what you make.
Correct.
Because in the Bahamas, we kind of live a lavish lifestyle. And so sometimes we feel like you need $200-300 in pocket change, and you really don't. So it's really I think that it should even be a point in school. When I was in school, we did commerce, and we had a bit of financial advice. I mean, not sufficient, but some. So I feel that would be a factor in even the schools to kind of gear the young people into the direction they should go, because some persons, they're working from 18, and you would see them at 30, and they don't even have a good vehicle, they don't have a piece of property. So
Correct.
I think the planning and the guidance is needed. So, Ms. Bastian, in the insurance industry, what age range do you normally see with persons coming in to look for life insurance? Because most persons think life insurance is for the old people. At least the younger people feel that way. They feel like, oh, I'm not going to need that until I'm older.
Well, the culture has been changing, because a lot more young persons are now trying to venture into business and purchasing homes. They're now coming in looking for house insurance, looking for insurance to cover mortgages. But what I would say to parents and grandparents, insurance is a good way to get your children started, because we often think about policies just to cover in the event of death. But then there are also insurances that you can cover that can help you just to live life.
Yes, yeah.
So we have annuities where you can save We have whole life insurances where it build up cash value. So many other things that you can inject monies into. You have endowments where your child can have a head start at age 20 or 21 to cash out and open a business if they don't choose to go to college. But I mean, that's monies in hand that you have a chance to get a head start. We often think of, even like Christmas, we often think of the best gift that we could offer. But, based on what we see now, we would see that the best gift that we could offer is probably financial freedom to really give our children a head start. Yeah.
yes. That is true. And I think in the Bahamas, we are changing our view now to really the more modern parents to looking at that, getting annuity from the child is born, and when they're 18, they have a startup that could assist them as well. So what age range is there a cutoff, for example, for life insurance? I know at some age it's difficult to get medical insurance if you have a health issue or whatever. So what range would be the cutoff in terms of if you want to get life insurance, even for a mortgage or for whatever reason?
Okay. Well, insurance, it runs kind of funny. It is very tricky. Once you come in with pre-existing conditions, then you're already limited to just what we call a final expense insurance. And that insurance really is just what it is, to cover you in the event of death. Now, if you're coming in for a mortgage and you're much younger, and healthier, you are insurable for a longer period. And insurance runs up to age 99. That'll be the age of payout. But you are able to get insurance like 65 up to 70, but it's limited in the type of insurance that you can get. It'll be more costly depending on what it is. It'll be more costly depending on your history. So that's why, it's advised to do it when you're much younger.
So that would only apply to life because I know there's an earlier cutoff for medical.
Yes. Medical insurance, the cutoff is like about 65, if I'm not mistaken, depending on which one. Because we have like, BAF has like about 3 tiers in medical. And what happens is with medical, again, you're rated based on your pre-existing
Yes.
conditions, your family history. So it really pays to start off a bit younger. Even if you can't get what it is that you really desire at that time, start with something small and you could build on it. But once you're already in the system, it's easier to upgrade than it is to just try and come in after you would have already had some kind of existing condition.
Do we have any questions? Is there audience? Any questions? Any comments? Thank you. So we'll continue. We have a question?
Saving at any age is feasible. It's just the type of saving one and the frequency. I think 40 is not a late start. Considering that I would say the average homeowner is late 30s, early 40s. So you would have had to have some sort of savings built up by that time. And if you're purchasing a home, that would have been depleting your savings, right? Because you have to furnish your home, you have to pay for your home, the expenses incurred in getting a home. So you would basically be trying to rebuild in your 40s. I would encourage persons in that age bracket to save aggressively, right? So you look at your life circumstances, you look at your bills, you look at what you really have to pay, right? Which is your mortgage, your rent, your utility is definitely your tithe, because that should have been coming out first, right? Your tithe and your offering coming out first. You should also be looking at your emergency expenses, like I said, your savings. You should be looking at any other expenses you have, school fee that you have to pay. Outside of that, I would encourage those persons, if they don't budget, start to budget to zero. A zero-based budget is where you account for every dollar that you earn, whether it's passive income, emergency income, your actual income from your job, you balance to zero, which means that your allotted funds in your pocket, you have a certain amount. Once that's depleted, that's gone. You're paying your bills, you're paying your utilities, you have your savings, and then any other venture that you would be trying to accomplish. So that'll help you to be aggressive in your savings goals, and also make it fun and interesting. If you have a family, get the entire family involved in savings, right? Children, like Minister? Yes, yeah. Minister Brown said her nephews, they don't want to buy KFC no more, right? Because they want to save their money. So children, they know how to save. They don't want to spend. And they know mommy, auntie, daddy, Grammy is going to buy for them. So encourage the entire family to save. Have savings challenges. And that could range from either you are going into the bank and telling the bank where your salaries come. I need you to send a standing order. I need you to send $200 to this salary. I mean, to this different account every month because you cannot save where you spend. Let me repeat that. You cannot save where you spend. So if you have an account where you spend, you know, we all use our debit cards. You cannot use that same account to save unless you're very, very fiscally prudent. And I don't know anybody, including myself, that has that sort of discipline as yet. We're working towards perfection. But until then, that'll be my advice. Save elsewhere, whether it's physical savings, whether it's standing order. I'm a person, I don't carry physical cash on me. Very rarely. I'm trying to in this day and age for emergency purposes, but very rarely I handle cash because I always use my card. I have prime access to online banking, so I can account for every dollar. But then at the same time, it's hard for me to physically save. It's hard for me to go into a bank and save. So I transfer, right? And I'm starting in this new year. I saw it on TikTok. Yes, a lot of savings challenges on the internet. This couple saved $5. Every $5 that came into their hand, they saved it from the beginning of the year to the ending of the year. And that was their Christmas presents to themselves. So even saving for Christmas presents, right? You use that spare change to save for a purpose like that. So I don't think 40s is late. You have to be aggressive. You have to have a plan, and you have to stick to it. And there are easy ways. Once you put practice into action, you can get ahead in life.
Yes, that saving $5, that goes against the myth of you have to have 100 or 300 to put in the bank.
No.
So it goes to the saying it's not what you make, it's what you do with it.
Correct. And that couple, I think it was a big box. It was maybe about the size of 3 shoe boxes. They saved maybe about $3,000. So every $5 they had in their hand, they put it in the box. There was some $10. I saw some $10 and some $20 in there, but it was majority $5. They would have been saving aggressively for the year, and that was presents for their kids. So even a savings goal, we don't think about it.
Yes.
We think Christmas time, I got to buy so-and-so a gift, I got to buy so-and-so a gift. Yes, that may be the case, but we're buying it out of the money that we would have saved the entire year.
Yes.
And that encourages fiscal prudence.
Yes. Okay, I really get that one because
Not only that, every time I get a promotion, I talk to myself. I say, Kay, you've done okay without this extra money. So that goes into my saving. Anytime I get an incentive check, I'm like, well, of course, I will always buy myself a gift. Then I say, I don't need this money in my savings. And I recommend that totally. It works.
yes, Sister Kay, that's a good idea. I have found that when I was younger, I think I was more prudent in my saving and more disciplined. Now that I'm older and retired, I sometimes have the thought like, love yourself a little bit, girl. You're paying all these bills, love yourself, but you know, it's never too old to be prudent, and you should always have a saving to fall back on no matter what your financial status are. So we've heard about the lots of money and little bit of money, but do you find in the Bahamas that Bahamians really look at long-term annuities like stocks and bonds? I know back in the day when I just started working, but mid through my working life, we had central bank stocks and bonds, and we had some at Cable Bahamas, which were like 10, 15, 20-year annuities. Do you find that happening with the average Bahamian or the average middle class Bahamians these days?
I think most persons are more aware of it now. So the general public being aware of those offerings. Central Bank is doing a good job. Even on their Facebook page, they post their offerings every month for government bonds, for stocks. I think if you weren't in a financial space buying those Cable Bahamas, CBL, I think even the airport, it was hard if you wasn't in that space. Now, I'm thinking, and from experience, from seeing people come and go, I think the information is more out there. And then two, we have more investment houses offering to locals more.
Yes.
So those investment accounts are more attractive. One, and then two, we can now through those investment houses, CFAL, Leno, RF Mutual, we can now exchange in the U.S. So we can open up a U.S. portfolio here. We can buy those same Apple, Amazon stocks that you see, even the U.S. Treasury bonds. That those opportunities weren't afforded, I would think, even the last 10 years. So I think now, from the central bank's perspective of allowing Bahamians to now and open those U.S. investment accounts has helped persons to save tremendously and also getting the word out. I hear the commercials on the radio every day with RF Mutual, encouraging persons to open up their U.S. brokerage account. The interest, I would say, because some of those stocks, while they are a bit volatile, they are high, they have high returns. So it's basically, are you willing to gain $500 in interest? I'm just using this as an example today, but perhaps lose maybe $1,000. So it's depending on your appetite too, one, and then two, it's depending on your savings goals and what you're trying to achieve. That may be something that you're looking forward to now because you want to purchase a house, or you maybe want to purchase a second home, right, or an investment property. So you would opt to invest that way, but that may not be a long-term strategy for you. But I think more Bahamians are aware of it. I don't know if we're taking full advantage of it. Hopefully we are. From the space that I work in, we have more international clients, so I can't really speak that well to local clients, but I know from my personal savings experience, yes, definitely, definitely, Bahamians are taking advantage of it now.
Okay, so we've heard so much information and tips that I'm sure we would be able to use going forward. What would be your last advice to our audience in terms of going forward from the January to December?
I would say write the vision and make it plain. That's a good starting place because without a vision, you really here, there, and everywhere. You're bouncing all over the place. So I would say write it down. Write down clear and concise plans so you'll know exactly where you're going. Make your short-term goals, your long-term goals, and lay it out in a way that you wish to execute it. That would be a guiding post, and then that would be something that'll hold you accountable. You know, and I feel like once you are held accountable, then you'll be more likely to complete whatever it is that you would have set out to do. So I think that with finances and according to everything else that you would wish to accomplish within the year, once you would take that time to make notes and execute, I think that you would be successful.
I echo Ms. Bastian's sentiments. You definitely have to write down what you want to accomplish. I would also add to make sure your goals are smart. I know in my former workplace, every goal that we had to set, it had to be smart. Smart means specific, measurable, attainable, R is realistic, and T time sensitive. So every goal that we had to put down, we had to fill out that acronym to say how we would achieve it via the SMART method. So any financial goal you have, any goal in general, I would say put your SMART, attach your SMART to your goal, and don't be afraid to revisit things, right? Some things may not be attainable, maybe now, maybe you need to stretch it out. Instead of it being a short-term or medium-term goal, it may have to be a long-term goal. So don't be afraid, do quarterly touch bases. That because the year goes so fast, right? We in January now. It'll be Easter, then it'll be summer, and then the year will be over, right? Before you even really sit down and say, boy, it's already summer. I feel like I'm behind. But if you also put your goals time specific, every quarter you touch that goal, even if it's a long-term goal, right? Even if it's a 5-year goal. Did I even look at it?
Yes.
Did I start to did I do the leg work on it?
Yes.
Did I go and look at, maybe you want to retile your house in the next, let's say, 2 years, right? Did you look at the price of tiles now? Right? It's small things like that, because the price of tiles now, and who knows, in the next year,
Exactly.
2 years, it may be double that price, and you may have to push up your goals, right?
Yes.
So do your quarterly touch bases with your financial goals, with your life goals. Talk to God about your goals. Put it at the feet of the Master, because He has the ultimate plans. Ask Him if this is right, if I should stretch this out, if this is what you really want for me, or if this is a personal goal of mine. So I think that's also important when we write things down. Sometimes we have the commercial used to be set it and forget it.
Yes.
Sometimes you have to do that with those goals. Ask God to guide you too. So that'll be my final words.
Okay, I can attest to the writing down. My family always laugh about me and say, Juanita, you have these books with 3, 4, 5 pages each month. And I always say yes, because when I get broke, I go back and I can see where every dollar went, and I could feel comfortable. Or I could say, did I do this? I shouldn't have bought that. I didn't need that shoes right there, Juanita. So the next month, I try to compare and say, okay, exit that and just stick with what you have to do. And for me, that helps, because I could go through the year and say, okay, you might buy 2 or 3 things there, but this month you didn't. So good, keep going. So for me, that's why I journal everything that I do. So that's a good idea. Not only is it biblical, it makes sense.
It does.
So you would always have a tracking of what you've done. So thank you, ladies. It has been a pleasure. We've been informed. Let's give them a hand. We have information now that we can go forward, and we should be rolling in our finances. So this has been another episode of Sisters on the Seat. We've had our guests, Miss Raenette Johnson and Miss Lakeisha Bastian, speaking about finances. We hope that you would have gotten tips and strategies that can help to stretch your dollar. And until the next episode of Sisters on the Seat, we say good night and God bless you.
Feel the fire moving on me.